Hello and welcome to the Fit Like a Girl podcast. My name is Jackie Lindahl. I am a mom of two, an avid coffee drinker, and a certified personal trainer. I have been in the fitness industry for nearly 10 years, and I help women get fit, strong, and lose weight without losing their damn minds. If you're looking for help on achieving your health, weight loss, and fitness goals without all the fitness industry confusion and BS, you have come to the right place. Hello and welcome back to the Fit Like a Girl podcast. My name is Jackie. Thank you so much for listening. I am back to doing more regular podcasts. I kind of took a break there for, like a good month on the podcast. And then I did post a podcast last week, which was my good friend Rhonda Danieluk and I doing actually an Instagram live together. So if you haven't listened to that one, definitely feel free to go listen to that one. We talked about consistency. Why is consistency so hard? And we shared our own struggles with it, as well as like how we help clients through slumps of consistency. Now I'm back on the podcast train. The past, I would say like month has been a total and complete roller coaster for us. Started in the month of April. It was a super busy month. My husband and I always host Easter for his family at our house, and it was a great day. But then after Easter, we ended up having to put our dog down, which was very sad and devastating and kind of expected, but kind of not expected. Easter Sunday, we had like, of course, Easter egg hunt for the girls and everything. And he's outside, like running around like crazy. Like he was 11 years old, still acted like a puppy. And he was running around, having a great day. Family came over. He's excited, of course, overexcited, because he always was, to see everyone. And then we went to go for a walk after dinner, just like a family walk around our neighborhood. And normally he always comes with us. And like when we say like, oh, let's go for a walk, he's like tearing down the driveway, like ready to go. And he was in the garage while we were having dinner. We're like, okay, buddy, let's go for a walk. And he like went and laid down on his bed, which was weird and definitely not like him. So my husband kind of looked at me like, oh, that's so weird. And I just knew, like in the pit of my stomach, everything that I knew about being a vet tech just like came up, and I was like, oh, this is not good. I didn't say anything to my husband at the time, but I was like, oh, this is not good. So I just kind of kept it in the back of my mind. Like he was just being kind of like more picky over the next few days with his food and just not himself. Of course, like the holiday Monday, the vets were closed, so I just like fed him whatever he would eat. He wasn't really eating much, which is unlike him, and just not super energetic. So you're like, okay. I got him into the vets the next day and, talked about what was going on. And they're like, okay, we should start with like blood work and probably x-rays. And I'm like, yes, please. Because I had warned my husband when I made the vet appointment that chances are whatever's going on is not going to be good. Like I felt like I didn't say anything on Easter Sunday, but I just knew. And so when I made the vet appointment, I said, okay, I made an appointment for Riggs, but I want you to know, like, there is a chance that something is seriously wrong because of his age. The lifespan of a Chesapeake Retriever is 10 to 12 years old, and he is 11 and a half. Like you need to be kind of prepared for the worst case scenario. So sure enough, went to the vets, they did blood work, they did x-rays, and unfortunately they found exactly what I knew they were going to find. They found a bunch of tumors and everything, and it was unfortunately his time. So we brought him home, we loved him up, we fed him anything that he would eat, and had a great evening just hanging out with him and stuff. And then the next day my husband and I brought him in. But as a former vet tech, I am not used to being on that side of the conversation. I'm used to being the vet tech, explaining what's going on and, talking to the owners and helping them kind of work with the vets to find what is the right decision for their animal. And it's unbelievably hard making that decision. And I always knew that it was an unbelievably hard decision. Making it for myself, though, with the dog that we've had for 11 and a half years as a puppy and everything, it was hard. It was definitely rough. So that threw us all for a loop. Because obviously my husband and I were devastated. He was our baby before we had babies. The girls, he he wasn't a huge fan of our kids because he was our kid. And we had the girls when he was like, how old would he have been? Like 6 or 7 when we had Anna. It was not a big fan of Anna. And they got in his grill and they got in his space. And we did our best to like, work on giving the dog space and that kind of thing. But he was always really sensitive to like loudness and the kids like crawling and their unpredictability, especially when they're like walking and falling and that kind of thing. We always made sure the girls like gave him space and stayed out of his space and stay off of his bed, and you don't bug him, you leave him alone, don't bug him while he's eating. But anyway, so the girls, they obviously were like, my oldest understood what happened. My youngest didn't understand. She's not even 3 yet. But my oldest was sad about it, but not quite, I feel like, understanding. Whereas like my husband and I were obviously devastated, like he was our baby. So that threw us for a loop. And then since then, it's just been busy with work and life. It is, like we are full-fledged spring here. So we've been working on a lot of projects and things like that around the yard, trying to get my garden ready. And thus I neglected the podcast and content in general. Actually, if you go on my Instagram, you've probably seen that I haven't been posting as much on Instagram and honestly, I just find that I go through ebbs and flows with content where sometimes I'm riding a high of content and I have lots of ideas and I'm filming and I'm making up, things and I'm podcasting and I'm writing. And then I hit a slump and I go through a slump of content where I'm not posting as much. It's a struggle. I'm having a hard time coming up with ideas or how to word things. And I fall off on content making. So that's exactly what happened is I kind of rode a high there for the beginning of the year and in a slump. And now I'm trying to pull myself back out of that slump. Just like a lot of my clients will do when it comes to consistency and things like that, where you kind of have a high where you feel great and everything is amazing. And you got all these, your brain's like just firing and you feel good. And then you go through a slump where you're not motivated and you're like, this sucks. And you show up in kind of haphazard ways and everything. And so that's where I'm at right now, is just trying to show up, even if it's kind of not exactly to the degree that I want it to be, and trying to make content and get myself back on track with that, just like I would a fitness goal or any other goal. But anyways, so that's where things are at. And that's kind of why I went a little MIA over the past 6 weeks-ish with the podcast and as well as just other content in general, just because we've had some things going on and I was trying to balance a lot of things, and unfortunately these kinds of things fell to the wayside. Can't say that it's not going to happen again, possibly sometime this year. But I had a few kind of hot topics that I've been seeing online lately and that I wanted to discuss. The first one being a very hot topic when it comes to women and training, and that is training around your menstrual cycle. So for the longest time, the generally accepted rhetoric online and in the fitness industry was women should adjust their workouts based on where they're at in their cycle. And I even years ago did an article on this. And there was not really a ton of actual research. This was just more so people's opinions and what they felt like women should do when it comes to training around their menstrual cycle. And it was just always kind of commonly accepted. But little did we know that the actual science behind it and the actual studies show that it's not as important as you think. So we have the 4 common phases of our cycle. We have menstruation, we have the follicular phase, ovulation, and luteal, right? And they generally go in a cycle, averaging anywhere between 28 to 30 some days. Some women's cycles are longer, some women's cycles are shorter. Anyways, so it was always commonly accepted that during the menstrual phase, that it should be like a deload. You should focus on decreasing the weights. You should focus on things like yoga and stretching because your energy's low. You're bleeding. Oftentimes women will be more tired during that time of the month, that kind of thing. Then as you get into your follicular phase, it was commonly thought that you're supposed to amp up your training, get back to regular weightlifting. Then when you hit ovulation, that's a great time of the month for like personal best and to really push the weights and work out hard. And then as you get into your luteal phase, kind of going back into that deload, focusing on, stretching and yoga or Pilates and those kind of like lower intensity workouts. And it was always thought that you should change your workouts along with your menstrual phase. Whereas now the data actually shows us that it's completely unnecessary and not needed, which was something I always had thought in the back of my mind because we feel different times of the year. We feel different days. And just because we're menstruating or bleeding or in our luteal phase or in ovulation doesn't mean that our symptoms or how we feel goes with what's, I guess, kind of commonly accepted. Because I have hit personal bests while on my period, and I have felt shitty and tired and did a haphazard workout while I'm ovulating. And I'm supposed to have like the best peaks in my workouts during that time. So, what the science actually shows is obviously women react differently and feel differently throughout the different phases of their menstrual cycle, and it varies person to person. Some women have a lot more symptoms. They feel really shitty, they're really tired, they're bogged down, they have heavy periods. Those women maybe don't want to train really hard when they're on their period. Other women feel okay and they feel like they actually have energy once their period starts, or they feel like they want to kind of get out that PMS symptoms with some heavy lifts. Basically, what the science has said is go by how you feel. And that's how it should be, regardless of whether you're a man or a woman or you're menstruating or not. It should just be go by how you feel. If you feel good and you can push the weights, listen to your body and do the thing. If you need to scale back slightly because you feel like a sack of shit, maybe you can scale back because you feel like a sack of shit. There's no such thing as absolutes when it comes to this kind of thing. And it's weird to me looking back now how commonly accepted it was that just, oh yeah, when women are training, they need to change their workouts along with their menstrual cycle. And looking back now, it never really did make any sense that that was such a common accepted thing in the industry. And there was coaches that would like have a specific like workout program based on women's menstrual cycles and where they should be. So as a coach, what I do for my clients, it's very dependent on how the client feels. I have some clients where they have endometriosis or PCOS and they have horrific periods that are long and heavy and terrible. So those women need to tailor their workouts depending on how they're feeling. And then they might have a period of time where they feel amazing and their energy's up and they're doing good. Great. A lot of times, the other thing that people don't really need, along the lines of endometriosis and PCOS, that people need to realize is not every woman's cycle is predictable. Some women have really irregular periods, a really irregular cycle, and that also needs to be factored in. So what I do with my clients who really struggle with their periods or with symptoms around certain times of the month is we just tailor their workouts based on what they need. If they have energy and they're feeling good and they're well slept and they're not, bleeding and have cramps and stuff like that, then great. Go hard with your workouts. Do your thing. If you are struggling, you had a shitty sleep, you feel crappy, you're cramping, you're irritable, maybe we scale back on your workouts or adjust them a little bit. That's really my philosophy when it comes to training clients around their period. So if you see something like that out there on the internet about training around your cycle, just know that take it with a giant grain of salt. And really, at the end of the day, what you need to do is just train around how you feel and listen to your body and acknowledge where you're at and adjust accordingly. That's it. That is it. It doesn't need to be something that we overthink so freaking much. Next thing. This is a question that I got from a client actually recently that I thought that I would talk about. So the question is she's going into a calorie deficit and wanting to lose a little bit of body fat. And she was asking me, what foods do I need to eat for weight loss? The thing is that there's no specific magical foods that cause weight loss. There aren't any. There aren't any magical foods that you need to automatically put in your diet or automatically cut out of your diet if you're in a weight loss phase. And this is obviously, if you've paid attention to any of my content for any length of time, you would know that that is not something that I preach. I very much preach that all foods can be a part of a healthy diet. You can eat all sorts of foods while in a fat loss phase, and there's no need to cut out certain foods. Now, while there are no miracle foods that cause weight loss, there are some foods that you can include that will make fat loss a little bit easier. Because again, fat loss always has to occur in a calorie deficit, which means that we generally need to lower the amount of calories that we are consuming in relation to the calories that we are burning. You can lose weight in a calorie deficit with any food. You could eat fucking McDonald's and Twinkies, and as long as you're in a calorie deficit, you will lose weight. Now, that being said, is that good for your health? No. Are you going to be starving and feel shitty the whole time? Yes. So there are important things that we need to consider. One, for our health, and two, also just to help make life a little bit easier. High fiber foods, number one. Any kind of high fiber food is going to be helpful not only for our health, our digestion, getting in important nutrients, all those kinds of things, but also high fiber foods are generally going to help us feel more full in a calorie deficit and help us get in a good amount of vital nutrients and vitamins and minerals and things like that. So those high fiber foods such as like berries, fruit, vegetables, especially like more of our coniferous vegetables, I'll say, like broccoli and Brussels sprouts, carrots, potatoes, all those kinds of high fiber vegetables. Obviously, beans and legumes and things like that also help boost not only just your fiber, but also add in a little bit of protein as well. Those types of foods are really helpful in a calorie deficit. Leafy greens are also amazing in a calorie deficit. Not so much for the fiber content because there's not as much fiber in them in comparison to like Brussels sprouts, broccoli, those kinds of foods. But because you can eat such a large volume of them with minimal calories. So things like big giant salads. And when I say salads, I'm not talking about just eat fucking lettuce because that's terrible. Don't eat a salad with just fucking lettuce, please. But salads, for example, can be really helpful while you're in a calorie deficit because you can get a large amount of food in a small amount of calories. So a bunch of different types of leafy greens and lettuces, adding in things like vegetables, your more coniferous vegetables, potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice, beans. Chickpeas are one of my favorite things to add into salads, fruits, a little bit of cheese, a little bit of healthy fats. Salads can be amazing. You can get in a large volume of food for pretty low calories. So those are some of the things that I really emphasize with my clients in terms of like getting in more fiber and volume eating. The other thing that you need to consider while you're in a calorie deficit is protein intake. So protein intake, I will beat this drum until I'm blue in the face. But next to calories being important for fat loss, protein is next. And the reason why protein is so important while you're in a fat loss phase is one, it's going to help you feel more full and satisfied with your meals. So yes, eating a large amount of fiber foods with vegetables and leafy greens and all those things are amazing. And then you pair it with protein, which is going to actually help you stay full in a calorie deficit to make it a little bit more satiating, because we've all eaten a salad of just vegetables and then we all know that we're hungry in an hour. So that's where adding in some kind of protein sources, whether it's beans, legumes, meat protein, egg, dairy, whatever it is helpful. But protein is going to help you keep full and satisfied in a calorie deficit. The other thing is protein is going to signal to the body, along with strength training, that you need to maintain your muscle mass. So if you're in a calorie deficit, you don't want your body to start breaking down muscle so that you can make up that energy deficit for weight loss. You want your body to break down your excess body fat. So that's where eating enough protein is going to help signal to the body to maintain and keep that extra muscle mass. Other foods to include in a weight loss phase, obviously water. Like water, duh. Okay. I feel like most people just know that drinking more water, more liquids, fluids, all those kinds of things just not only helps your body function a little bit better, makes you feel better, but also helps you keep hydrated. Other foods that I really like to include in a fat loss phase, again, these are not miracle foods. They're not like some miraculous fucking food that's going to make everything magical and you're just going to lose weight like that. But they're helpful in a fat loss phase. Things like popcorn, depending on the type of popcorn, because obviously, like our movie theater popcorn with extra butter might not be the most helpful for our weight loss goals, but something like Smart Pop, popcorn that you make at home, depending on what toppings you put on it, those can be really helpful. I already mentioned it, but berries, melons, those things are amazing in a fat loss phase just because they're sweet, they're really tasty, as well as high fiber, lots of water content in them. Whole grains, oats, those kinds of things are also amazing in a fat loss phase. They're high fiber, very nutrient dense. Foods like oatmeal are amazing. Rice is another great one in a calorie deficit. And like I said, no foods need to be excluded. We aren't excluding certain foods just because we're in a calorie deficit. We may need to adjust the portion sizes of what we're having. For example, pasta. Pasta is something that a lot of people can overeat quite easily because, let's face it, an actual serving of pasta, if you've ever actually measured it out, is sad. Whereas I know for myself, I can eat a giant plate of pasta and still have room for more. So pasta is something that can sometimes just need to be adjusted, or you just have to be more aware of your portions. It does not mean that you can't have pasta in a calorie deficit. Same thing with bread, same thing with tortillas. Like all these types of foods can be included in a calorie deficit. You just have to be mindful of your portions. So keep that in mind. No, there are no miracle foods that can cause weight loss, but there are foods that you can add in to include more of in your diet to help make being in a calorie deficit for weight loss a little bit easier. The last thing that I want to chat about today is summertime is coming. It is, as I record this, it is May 21st. Summer events are coming, and I have a lot of clients that are asking me, like, how do I work around all of these summer events with weddings, with camping, get-togethers, barbecues? And they're like, how do I do this but still stay on track for my goals? And I approach summertime very similar to how I would approach the holiday season. So these types of questions usually pop up in the summertime when people have events and weddings and camping and gatherings, but they also pop up again in December when people have holiday parties and Christmases and gatherings and company events and all these things. And they're like, how the heck do I navigate around this to stick with my goals? So here's what I usually tell my clients. If you know what events you have coming up, whether it's over the whole summer or just over the next month, take a look at your calendar, whether it's in your phone or you write it out. Take a look at your calendar and mark off which days you know that you have events or camping or whatever. Okay. So say you have something going on like at least one day of every single weekend. You go and you mark those out on the calendar. Those are the days that you probably know that you're going to indulge, you're going to have fun, whatever it is that's going on. And then you know which days you know for sure that you aren't going to get a workout in. Maybe you're not going to be hitting your nutrition goals, whatever it might be. Then you can go and reverse engineer which days you're going to be on track for your goals. Because here's the thing, even if you have an event or two, say you have like 6 events in a month, throughout the month. Okay, so that's 6 days that you're probably going to be off track for your goals. In a 30-day month, that's still 24 days that you're going to be able to be on track for your goals. And oftentimes when people put it into perspective like that, it helps because they'll go through and they'll say, okay, I know which days I already know that I'm going to be off track. And I know which days I need to just continue to be on track. The other thing to acknowledge and maybe accept is maybe your consistency might not be as stellar in the summertime versus other times. It doesn't mean that you let the whole thing fucking slide. It just means that instead of being at 80% consistency, maybe you're at 65 or 70%. You're still consistent in hitting your goals the majority of the time, but you may have to accept that maybe your results might slow a little bit, or maybe you just won't be as consistent. Or the other thing is maybe you go through a period of maintenance instead of a fat loss phase. If you're wanting to focus on fat loss, but you're finding it really hard in the summer, maybe just focus on maintaining for a few weeks or a month. There are options here is what I'm trying to say. And just because it's summer and just because it's busy doesn't mean that you have to just say, oh, well, fuck it. I guess I might as well just give up on my goal. Because we all know that is the cycle that we're trying to break that isn't getting us anywhere. So keep those things in mind. I hope that you found this podcast helpful. If you have questions, feel free to find me on Instagram, and message me is the best place. I will post my Instagram in the show notes. If you haven't followed me there already yet, please be sure to follow me there as well. If you have questions about my training programs and training options, feel free to head to my website, www.fitlikeagirl.ca. You can feel free to fill out my inquiry form or just shoot me a message and we can chat about what you feel like you need for help in terms of your goals. And lastly, I just want to say thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you next time.